This, depending on who you are, might look pretty common. It's a 1955 Allis Chalmers WD45, and I found this on Facebook Marketplace. But this tractor, aside from the rims, is 100% original. When's the last time you've seen spark plug wires from 1955? I originally saw the pictures and I bought it thinking I might just steal these wheels and tires off and resell it, but it looks so nice. I cannot just steal the tires off of and resell. So what I'm going to do here is we're going to bring this in the shop and we're going to go through it kind of front to back, give it a full service, all the fluids, make the adjustments. We're going to make this thing mechanically sound. You can see how well it's cleaning up already, so it's going to be worth it just to shine this thing up to be a nice original. So let's get to it. Hey everyone, welcome back to this project. Just before we get started, I want to say a thank you to everybody who commented on the last video and let me know what they thought about the overall video length. I want these videos to be easy to watch. I don't want you to feel like you're sitting there too long or it's dragging on or you got to watch it in two parts. But it seems like the majority of people don't mind the 45-minute to 1 hour videos. Some of you even wanted longer, but you may see some two-part videos in the future. But for this project here, the rest of this is going to be in this video right here. And a quick note, if you like this kind of stuff and you want to see this tractor in person, I'm planning to bring it to the 5-Point Steam Thresher Show in Perrysburg, Ohio on July 20th. There's a rain date in there on that. I'll put the information in this video, but it's a great show. They always got threshing, plowing, what else they got going on there? Always a really nice display. It's a one-day show, but I'm planning to bring this and plow over there. So if you want to see it in person and go to a nice show for the day, Perrysburg, Ohio, July 20th would be the place to be. So thanks for watching, guys, and let's get back to the video. There we go. Yeah, it looks pretty darn good in here. Pretty good looking gears. There's a little bit of rounding on these dogs here where they catch, but not bad. Actually nicer than the other WD45 that I have. So to explain what's going on here, these you do want to put a gasket on because you open them up for service, and this one actually does need some service. This is an over center clutch and it runs off this lever over here. Forward is disengaged, backwards is engaged, and then you have the foot clutch here. So this foot clutch comes up to the front and that disconnects all power from that bell housing backwards. And now this clutch over here, this hand clutch, disconnects power right here. The hydraulic pump and the power takeoff run off this section right here. So as long as everything here forwards continues in operation, you have technically live power and live PTO, and everything from this clutch backwards stops moving. So that's basically just your drive gears that's moving your wheels. So this was the Allis Chalmers first, and they ran it for a long time, version of live hydraulics. They didn't have independent hydraulics until I want to say the mid 60s, 1965 they went to an independent hydraulic setup, but the power takeoff still used a secondary clutch like this called a power director. It was a clutch and a high-low gear shift all in one, but these are just a single clutch. But after we get everything cleaned up, you have to set the shim distance between these clutch plates. And this one does not have quite enough snap. It's not bad, but it's definitely not up to factory spec. So you take these here, so I should be able to rotate it. There's a shim pack. There's 3 shim packs on these, and you take these bolt loose, remove the shims, and then measure in between the clutch discs. I'm also going to remove this plug because I have a belt pulley drive that I want to put into this thing, and this shares the same oil with everything else, so we'll get it flushed out. Yeah, as I was afraid, the cork is kind of going bad. I have a replacement. We'll see if we can get it in there. To flush these compartments out, I've just got some solvent in a garden pump sprayer. But just work it around in there and flush them out. Hand clutch and the transmission were pretty clean, but the rear end scooped all this sludge out of the bottom of there. Glad I'm cleaning it out, but this is one of the better ones I've torn apart. Everything in here looks good. We got everything washed out. You can see the actual red primer layer in there now. We're gonna get this thing sealed back up. I'm gonna use the same black RTV on this. Every time I've ever put one of these together, they seep if you do not put some kind of gasket sealant on there. So why do that and just use gasket maker to start with. I bet if they produced these tractors today, this is what they would come with. They would not have a gasket on them. Got the cover all cleaned up here. Took advantage of it being off and scrubbed a little bit more. Also took the opportunity to scrub this black back platform up some. Get that back on here. All these are finger tight now, so we'll let that set up for an hour before we tighten it all down. And then I have these two short bolts in until we put that hydraulic line back on. Up next, we're working on this hand clutch. Gotta disengage it here. So what we're doing is checking the distance in between these plates. So that's quite a bit of free play there. And then there's so 3 discs and 2 solid discs. So that's friction material, and friction material, and the 2 wide ones are just steel discs. But that overall clearance should be 30 thousandths. So we got to measure what we've got here and then remove what we don't need. Let's start with this. Not quite. Yeah, pretty close. So this looks like about what we're working with. Just check all the way around, make sure it's a consistent. So we got a 72 thousandths gap there that we need to shrink down to 30 thousandths. So we need to take 40 thousandths worth of shims out of these stacks. These weren't overly tight. Usually some gorilla's been in here and tighten them so much you can barely crack them loose. And just gonna pop this shim stack out of here. See, their shape, they jump over the bolts so you don't lose them in there. Unless you're me, you'll lose them anyways. It looks like we've got about 75 thousandths worth of shims here. We need to take about 45 out of this. These are 5 thousandths shims they got in here, so I'm taking 40 thousandths out of it, which is 5 less than my measurements call for, but so he's only leaving us with 15 thousandths of shim in there. So either we're gonna have to add some more in and my measurements were a little off, or the next time this clutch needs serviced, it's gonna need the discs replaced. They do look pretty wore down in there. They look thinner than normal. The engine clutch looks like it's about in the middle of its adjustment, so hopefully we got a lot of life left in that. We can just get it in there, but that's it's a little tighter than I would like to see it. I'm gonna add another 10 back into this thing. That's pretty much what you want right there. That one feels good. It might be just on the snug side, but for what we're doing here, should be fine. I have a pretty good idea on how these feel when they're set correctly and the noise they make. That one's pretty darn good, so I'm happy with that setting. I'll double check my torque on those bolts, and then we can put the plugs in and start filling these compartments back up. Got everything cleaned up and some form of gasket in there. Okay, I've got it all bolted down. I think we got it where we want it. There's first gear, working correctly. There's second gear, neutral, third gear. Let's see if we got fourth. There's fourth gear. And there's reverse. Perfect. I think this needs a new gear shift boot. You know, 70 years wasn't too bad for the original to last. I highly doubt I'm going to get that kind of life out of this one, but we can hope. It's pretty impressive that it got that long out of that one, which means it's kind of a testament to how this thing was cared for. Put the shifter ball back on. There's a good chance that that is a 70-year-old piece of rubber. Don't know. Get this hydraulic line snaked back through here before everything's bolted in. Just making a gasket for this hand clutch housing. Already cut the holes, and the outer part, I just traced the cover for that. And for the inner part, I'm just tapping it out with a ball peen hammer against the sharp edge of the casting. There you go, and there's a little on the outside over here to trim off. Something I like to do with these drain plugs before I put them back in on these old tractors, I like putting neodymium magnets in them. The one that runs the hydraulic section on this tractor has a magnet. It's a real weak magnet in it already, but the other compartments don't, and there's no filtration at all on any of these. So with it aging, if bearings start to come loose or something, that magnet will help grab any flakes that come loose and keep it from getting in the bearings and ruining everything. They're not that expensive, and I think it's worth the effort. And they're not going anywhere. Once they're stuck, they're stuck. In the hand clutch, transmission, and rear end, we are putting 80-90 weight gear oil. In the hydraulics, we're going to put universal transmission hydraulics, and in the final drives, we're going to put, I believe, 85 140 weight. This takes, I think, right about 5 gallons to fill up transmission and rear end. And that's how I'm filling the final drives up. The final drives are filled, the rear end's filled, transmission's filled, hand clutch compartment, PTO's full, and we couldn't get any closer to the proper amount if I tried. It is at the top edge of that rear plug. And that was just what was left in the bucket. I didn't try that. So we can put this cover back on now. I put shellac on the other side of this gasket, and this side I'm just gonna put a little bit of this gear oil in hopes that if I gotta service this in the future, this side will release and the other side will stick to the cover. And when you put these back on, you wanna make sure this tab is to the front right. And that is so you can hook up your draft control spring. So up next, I want to install this belt pulley, and I need to do that before I fill the hydraulic oil compartment because it'll run out here otherwise. But the cork gasket in here kind of chunked out when I pulled the plug, and I have a new one. I've done this 2 ways before. You either pull that frame rail and guarantee you don't ruin this, or you chance it and pry that old one out, take it out in chunks, and try to slide this new one in. I'm feeling froggy today, so I'm gonna soak this in a little bit of oil and pry that one out and see if we can get this slipped in. This is likely the original gasket in here. And usually they're just like growed in, they don't like coming out. So you gotta like scrape them out in pieces, which appears to be what's going on. All right, let's see if we can test our luck here. If you do this, you got to make sure you support the peak, like right here, because that's where it's going to want to split the cork. Just make sure it doesn't severely buckle anywhere. Well, I think it's our lucky day. And look at that, changed out. Just a little pre-soaking oil goes a long way on these. But it's great. Now we got to remove this set screw up here, and we can slide that PTO belt pulley drive in. Couldn't get this scrubbed off with the pressure washer, but it's chipping off pretty easy with a putty knife. What that is, if that's just petrified oil that's that hard or what? So I've got this belt pulley cleaned up pretty good here. So you understand how these work. Each one of these holes is at a slightly different depth, and that's used to set the backlash of this gear. And when you want to disengage the belt drive, you just slide the pulley slightly out and you put this set screw from here and it sits in that groove. And then when you want to engage it, you just loosen the set screw and then it tightens down in one of these holes that sets the backlash. You're pretty much just starting the tractor up, running it, listening to the sound to get that initial setup. This one does have a little arrow right here, so we're going to kind of throw that towards the top and hope it's a good fit. Careful getting around that new gasket. These bearings were a fair bit stiff, little surface rust in them, so it may not run the quietest. But color does match the rest of the tractor, so I'm happy about that. That pulley came with that tractor when I bought it. Sure is nice doing this stuff in the summertime, because none of this oil flows this good in the winter. That should do it. Now we got all new fluid from here backwards. Looks like they changed the engine oil not that long ago. So this thing's got all flushed in the back. It's got new fluids. That gives me a little bit of peace of mind. Gonna take this thing and put it to work. As much as I don't want to, I'm gonna pull this stuff here apart. I don't know, the amount of gasket sealer that's like oozed out around this stuff, I'm worried that it's blocking the passages inside. So I'm gonna clean it while I'm here. The coolant's drained, I'm gonna clean it out just to be sure. It really wasn't too bad here, but what I see down there makes it worth tearing this thing apart. This is what I was worried about. All this stuff, it's not gonna stay in there. It's gonna break off, and you're gonna have this chunk right here floating around inside the cooling system. It's gonna get in the water pump, clog the bypass, get in the thermostat. Do not put this much RTV in stuff. A little bit's okay, but this much. Like, look at the gasket. Every single bit of it squeezed out. None of it stayed in there. Out of that whole pile of RTV, that's how much was on the gasket. None. It all squeezed out. Either use this stuff or use a gasket with like some a really light amount of that, or some shellac or something. This would be a good. I'm actually going to reuse this gasket, and I'm just going to clean it off and put a little shellac on it. That's exactly why I took it apart. I'm glad I did. So I'm going to reuse this gasket and just apply a little of this, and especially seeing how flat it was sealing before, this will do whatever we need, and this isn't going to break loose and plug anything up. I am going to use some RTV on this face because it is very, very pitted up. I'm guessing they broke this or broke all the bolts off in the old one or something. Because you can see it's a replacement. Additionally, I got some stainless bolts and lock washers that are the correct length. We'll just get started, let it sit up, and then torque it down later. See how bad this water pump. Yeah, at least 10 to 15% of it was blocked off. The sleeves don't look too bad in there. This gasket was also in good condition, so I just put a little bit of that shellac on it. Make sure it seals back up. There, that should be good to go. Additionally, while we're up here, let's check the grease in this front pedestal. Looks pretty good in there. Not too bad. Doesn't look like there's any water in it, so that's a good sign. I'm gonna top it off with a little corn head grease though while we're in here. Get this old gasket off of here first. So this is corn head grease. It's got the consistency of grease basically, but it's pretty thin, and at a certain temperature it does turn liquid. This is good for like track rollers and stuff on undercarriages. and of course gearboxes on corn heads. And I just happen to have this piece of bar stock that just fits in a tube. Makes it easy to empty it out. Just kind of get that down in there. Gets over into this worm gear and bearing. This shaft is missing a roll pin here, so just need to hold this. It keeps this shaft where it belongs when you're not hand cranking it. And drive the pin in. And there you go. So that's how that's supposed to work. Ended up making a new gasket here. Just gonna put a little bit of this grease on the top surface. This is a really porous surface. It'll grease, I would think, would help keep water out. New gasket I just made up, and the cover. Which pretty side do you think should go forwards? We'll do it like this. These are ready to tighten down now. Let's take a peek under this valve cover and see what's here. A little dirtier than you like to see them, but I think it's pretty good. Gonna take the spark plugs out before I adjust these valves. Going to set the valves on this thing now. You guys have seen me do that several times over again, so we'll check back in when I'm done and I'll let you know if there's anything way out of whack. Set all the valves. They were pretty much all loose, but nothing crazy out of adjustment. While we're in here, if you see this oil right here, that's coming out of the end of this rocker shaft. I don't know if it was because they were cheap or it was easy or what, but Allis used corks to seal up their rocker shafts, and they leak over time. So when I take them apart, I like to replace those corks. I think I've mentioned this in the past, but make sure you get actual cork. Don't just get use synthetic, because it'll melt. The oil gets hot enough that it'll melt right through them. Got a battery hooked up, so let's crank this over, build a little oil pressure, and verify that everything's oiling correctly before we put the valve cover back on. Yep, looks like we've got oil coming out of each rocker arm, so we're good to go. Got the valve cover all cleaned up and a new gasket on it. I actually had this sitting overnight with some shellac on it and sitting flat on the surface with some weight on top, and that just makes it a whole lot nicer for this gasket. Sometimes these want to roll on in the middle and they want to leak, and it's kind of a mess. So that usually pays to kind of glue that in place. Got a little thin layer of oil around this gasket as well, so hopefully if we need to service this in the future, we can save this gasket. See if we can get this old muffler to come out of here. Appears to be an old Stanley. Generally, a Nelson or a Walker would have the original one-piece bracket. Okay. You know, sometimes penetrating oil works. See, the whole bottom of this one was blowed out. Sounded awful. And I've got a brand new, what is supposed to be a Nelson muffler to replace it. It looks kind of like a Nelson muffler, but it doesn't say Nelson, and it's a little more crude than any of the Nelsons I bought in the past. It sure cost as much as a Nelson did. These brackets don't need to be here. I'm not really sure what they would have been for. I don't know. If you recognize these, you can tell me what they were for. Let me know. There's one on each side, same spot. Up next, I'm going to work on adjusting these brakes. But first, I got to get all the mouse nests out of the axle tubes. And there's a lot in there. That's most of everything out of there, and I flushed a lot out when I pressure washed it. Something's really cozy about those final drive housings, apparently. To adjust the brakes on these are a band, kind of a band style brake. They have a front and a rear shoe that go over a drum, and when you push the brake pedal, it draws on the bottom and ends up pulling everything together. To adjust these, you have these set screws in the back. You turn these, basically you jack up one wheel, roll it until you get a little bit of drag on it by turning this set screw in. And then once you get a little bit of a drag, turn it off half turn, set the lock nut, then go up here to this clevis pin, turn this in until you get a slight drag, then back it off a half turn. Before I get to that adjustment though, the springs in this thing are broken. There's a broken one and these other ones are stretched, so I'm gonna replace those. Put some gloves on because every time I mess with springs, I end up hurting myself. And hook your new one on. And then the best way I've found to put these on, you get a piece of wire, fish it through that hole, bring it up, hook it around your spring, put your spring back down in there, center it up, so you're not pulling harder than you have to, and pull that wire out. Someone at some point replaced this one with like the wrong spring, so they have this cotter pin up here to take up the slack. It's a farmer fix. It's kind of smart. And we'll do the other side. So with our new springs installed, we can jack up this side and adjust this brake. It smells like an old grain truck in here, aka mouse nests. That's a slight drag right there. So let's back it off a half turn. Now same deal here. Tighten this down until there's a slight drag. Yeah, that was about a slight, it's a bit hard to tell because there's a little rust on them, but it's about a slight drag right there. So we'll turn that off half a turn. And when you adjust these, you really want to make sure that you can still set your parking brake. Because if you get them so those pedals aren't far down enough, this parking brake won't work correctly. And when you're done with your adjustments, just tighten your lock nut back up. Got the brake covers cleaned up, ready to go back on. And this one here comes with the seat bracket. Going to adjust this seat spring to the back because I'm a little huskier than the last guy, but it doesn't look like this paint has ever been broken around this washer. So this is the first time this has been moved ever. It's just kind of wild to me that it could be this old and that seat's never been adjusted. And that should help me not bottom this thing out. Give it a try. Got some leverage on it, but isn't terrible. I got the seat right where I want it, sitting good now. I was sitting here working on this thing and I heard like some growling and chirping, and I looked around the corner over here. There's a couple of these little guys. They're awful feisty for kittens. Kind of cute though. Up next, I'm gonna do some work on this front grill piece. Mainly what I'm gonna do is repair this where it's split out and where he cut it with a grinder on this side. There's more to it that really should be repaired. Lay it over here. This, and I don't know why the guy did it. I don't know if it was rotted and he thought he was gonna save it or what, but this should come all the way down. Well, here, I'll show you. So this is what it should look like. You should have these pieces that fold under and go all the way back here. It's also, even this new one, starting to rust in here. They're built a little different than the originals. The originals had a piece of canvas in between, kind of as a buffer. I don't know what he did here. This is all curled up. This is a brand new radiator they put in it, but they're kind of rough on it. That's for sure. I think I'm just going to TIG weld this back together. That'll put the least amount of heat into it. I think it's best while I got it apart that I just patch in this bottom part the way it should be. This is a northern radiator, and I don't remember if I've heard those being good or bad in the past, but it's not great. It's very, very lightweight. It's not near as heavy duty, or near as heavy in weight, at least, as the originals. The shroud is epoxied on and it's actually already torn loose there. So I'm gonna have to repair that. And it doesn't fit like it should. It's unfortunate that this thing must have sat with some moisture in it. The bottom of this is getting rotted out, so I'm gonna clean it up. I'll put some oil or something on that so it doesn't get worse. But the whole shelf's kind of that way. Actually, you know what? I was wrong. That's not epoxy. It's soldered the way it should be. So we can resolder that here. Yeah, I'm good with that. I don't want to introduce really any more heat to potentially separate the rest of the radiator, so that should hold. I'm going to duplicate this side here. That way there's something to work with. Got my pieces all cut out here and ready to weld in. This one here goes like that. So let's weld those up. To weld this stuff, I'm gonna TIG weld it, and for filler metal, I'm just gonna use some 30 thousandths wire out of my MIG welder. When your gloves get holes in them, just throw them out. I was able to get the left side welded up here. And since this is going to be hidden, I might buff it off a little bit. But it really didn't add any heat into the side over here. Just that factory rust line. So we didn't mess with the finish. This side here is going to be a little closer to the edge, so we might get into the, it's not really paint anymore, but you may see that we welded on it on this side. But welded up nice. This stuff's pretty thick. I mean, it's, I don't know, probably 50, 60 thousandths thick, so it doesn't weld too bad. I've got this all patched back together, so we've got solid piece on each side. This side was a whole lot less fun because there's a lot of rust in this area, and this was out closer to the edge, but it turned out pretty decent, and it should give that grill a little more like structure. I sprayed some oil around the inside, and I'm just letting it soak in along like these joints right here where they overlap. Put a little bit on the bottom of the radiator too, let it soak in under there and like above this steel plate on the bottom, because that's right where they like to rot out. Additionally, because it was like this hose was all smashed in the top of that, I just pushed down on this top of the radiator tank, and it's super thin, but I was able to push it down and lower that whole neck, so I'm hoping it'll fit in that grill a little better. Well, I got the grill all cleaned up and a little coat of wax on it. Sure looks nice now. But let's see if we can wrestle this radiator back in here. I'm hoping it's gonna sit in like it should. There we go. All right, we've got it sitting in there, and it's definitely sitting in there better than it previously was. A note on these, when you put your top bolts in, especially the aftermarket radiators, make sure they're short. You don't want anything too long or they'll stick through and they'll poke that top tank and rub a hole in it. But that looks good, should be more secure. I'm not impressed with this radiator. I don't know if I'd buy one myself. It was I think they paid $350 for that. I think I've got to the point where pretty much everything that is left to bolt onto this is sheet metal that's going to get waxed and kind of polished. So I need a way to preserve and darken up this paint that's here. So what I'm going to use is some boiled linseed oil. I've used it on a few other things in the past. So I'm gonna put that in a sprayer and we're actually gonna spray that on this thing. Really don't need that much. A little bit goes a long way with this stuff. I'm gonna try not thinning it and just turning the pressure up a little bit. I got the majority of it sprayed on now. This won't get like hard as paint will, but it'll get to the point where it's not tacky and it won't collect dust. It deepened up that orange color that I was a little bit afraid wasn't gonna come back all that well. But it looks nice. There's just enough paint left on this thing to make it stand out. Not sure if the sun is doing it any justice right now, but it looks pretty good. I was kind of bummed. I was cleaning this seat up and this decal was perfectly readable. And I sprayed it with water and it wiped all the letters off, just like instant. So these are an aftermarket hinge that a lot of these have, but that one did have the correct decal on it. And it was legible. But I'm gonna just maybe a couple of heavy spots wipe off a little bit, but this will sit inside and harden up and hopefully not collect too much more dust in the meantime. Got our new belt put on there, but before we do that, I'm gonna clean these pulleys, make sure we don't have any boiled linseed oil built up on them. I don't want that to start making the belt slip. Got the radiator all bolted down now. Hose is tightened up. This radiator just does not fit well. If you can see that shiny spot down in there, I had to put washers because it was just way overly squeezing that lower part together. That's probably why that solder joint broke in the past. Maybe even should have moved it over, but It'll be all right, but both sides I had to do that with. It's looking good though. Starting to look like a tractor again. The paint looks nice, blends in. Where this oil on the frame and the wax part are together, they look pretty identical, so that's great. So up next is this generator. We got a couple issues with it. The tractor wasn't charging, but that doesn't necessarily mean the generator was bad. But we've got the bushing is loose and the bearing is also going bad. So I bought a kit. It's just a new bearing for the front and new bushing for the back, and there's some new brushes in here. I got this from the Brillman company, and they're not paying me anything to say this, but this company right here, if you need anything electrical for distributors, for magneto, this is a complete wiring harness, anything to make it look like it's original, spark plug wires, anything. I would strongly suggest this company. As much as they can do, they get stuff made in the USA. Not everything's available in the USA, but if they can get high quality stuff, it seems like they do, and that's what they're passing on to you. So I can't stress it enough. If you need anything, buy it from them. It's your best chance to get quality products. Brushes really don't look bad, but you should be able to see the brushes moving with the play here. So definitely need to change that bushing out. I'm not sure if the bearing's bad or not. If you're ever curious how the oiling works in these, it actually comes down through and then a wick picks it back up and oils that bushing. It doesn't go directly to it. Removing the leads that go to the brushes here. So those brushes and our new brushes are like exact same size, so I'm not gonna change those. That bushing became slightly deformed as I ran it through there and beat it in, so I'm gonna just run this reamer through and that'll cut a little bit of a ridge out of it. Gonna re-drill for our felt. I don't have a new piece of felt, so I'm just gonna feed this old piece back through there. It'll work just fine. Clean this end cap up, and I'm gonna use some of this Permatex. It's kind of like the old school brown stuff. Get set back on here first. Now if you're doing this, don't forget to seal this back hole up. There we go. And that's been in there since 1955, probably. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Oh well. That's why that mat's there, to not destroy stuff. Now we should be able to replace that bearing. That's been serviced at some point. Stiff. It's not as bad as I thought it was, but it's very, like, it's dried out. New one sure feels a whole lot better. Even though this is a sealed bearing going into here, there is a felt seal. And it's probably not a bad idea to let that thing have a little bit of oil now and then. Same thing, I'm going to put a little Permatex on this thing. Just checking this over and cleaning everything off. It looks like it's probably gotten warm at one point in time, but I'm not seeing anything alarming. Nothing really cooked off, so I'm thinking we're good to go. You know, I did all that, and that screeching sound, now we did get rid of all the shaft play. It doesn't have any play in it anymore, but that screeching sound, it was the brushes. This back in, put our keyway back in. Alright, I'm going to do something. I've got a stone that's used to clean up these armatures. Should really learn the terminology of the generator. Now these are designed to run up against that as it's rotating and clean them and give it a fresh surface. So let's give it a try. I took the squeak out of it. Don't like all those little fine particles that came out, but see if we can. So I didn't do this before I messed with it. Probably could have, but they had enough play in it. I wanted to make sure it was good to go regardless. But I'm going to ground the frame of the generator. I want to make sure we've got a good frame ground, and then we want to figure out which one is our armature. They should be marked. We want to ground our frame and then touch our positive to our armature, and our generator should motor. And it is. And it's motoring smooth and quietly, which means it should generate power once we have it back in the tractor. That doesn't mean that this cutout relay is functioning properly, but it does mean the generator part, all the circuits in it are good, and that's working correctly. To seal up this end hole, I'm just going to drive a little wood dowel piece in it, and then we'll cut it off. And that oil will keep that thing sealed up, and if you ever need to remove it, that wood will be easy enough to pull back out. I'm going to reinstall the cover here. I don't have a long enough piece of cork to go completely around it, but I do have two shorter pieces, so that's what we're going to have to work with. There we go. She's back together and we can bolt it to the tractor. Hopefully it doesn't give us any issues. So let's get this fished in here. Should probably snake the belt on it first. Put some tension on our belt. Tighten up the adjuster. And I did not tighten these mount bolts yet because I wanted to make sure we had enough play to set our alignment. I was debating on putting this thing to 12 volts, but it just wouldn't look right. Something like this, all original looking, and then a alternator hanging out. So generator, it stayed. I think this project is going to turn out well, but man, there's a lot of scrubbing to get all this stuff cleaned up. I'll start reassembling these rear fenders. Start with the brackets. I took everything apart to scrub it, and I was able to wax the sheet metal, but these brackets I ended up putting linseed oil on. They're a little too rough. And I'll put a little bit of oil on those bolt heads to get them to blend in. I really want to make sure there's a good coating between how the fender mounts. If you're working on these tractors and you're going through them and you plan to pull hard with them, I mean, I would check this regardless, but these bolts where the final drive bolts to the axle housing, they get a little bit loose over time, especially the lower ones that are studs. I just put an 1/8 to 1/4 turn on all of these. I've actually had it before where we were pulling hard with my other one and you could see where the casting had shifted. It broke the old like dirt grease line. So since then I've made sure to check these, and this one, sure enough, every one was just, they weren't loose, but they weren't as tight as they should be either. Can reinstall our toolbox. I was able to wax and kind of buff the majority of this one, but the back here I'm going to put some linseed oil on. I think it'll be a better preservative long term since you can't really get to it. But these tractors were pretty much assembled and then painted, so you can see all this here doesn't have any paint on it. The back of the toolboxes don't have any paint. I don't even think the majority have any primer under the paint. They were just put together and then shot with some orange paint to hopefully keep the rust at bay. But you know, these were tools in the day. They weren't a show tractor. And these old blue jean rags were in the toolbox, kind of protecting the bottom. So I'm going to put those back in there and leave them be. Looks pretty good. Reinstall the little bullet tail light. If you've seen my other videos in the past, you might think these fenders seem like they sit a little higher, and they actually do. When they went to WD45s, these brackets here were the same height as a WD, but the fenders were, or the tires were bigger. So in 1954, they actually made these brackets taller, so the fenders sit higher. But my other one is a first year production, so it sits lower, like the WDs did. Reinstall the battery box, but I want to clean this up because this is where the ground cable goes. This isn't in pristine shape. It's got this hole rotted out in it, but for now, I'm gonna use this unless I can find like a nicer original one. Or I may replace it at one point, but this doesn't bother me too much. I am missing the lid for it, so we might have to figure something out there. Got the new ground strap, but I will have to leave it loose for now because there's a cable clamp that goes through here eventually. Now it's time to strip all the rest of this wiring off, battery cables, so I can get it all replaced. Before I put my welder away, the top of this fuel line actually has a spot where it's probably about halfway wore through, where it's been rubbing on the air cleaner. So I'm going to take this off and weld that back so we don't ever spring a leak. Don't need a fire. There you go. Should last a long time now. I'm gonna replace this original battery cable. Yeah, isn't much holding that left together. I didn't opt to buy one. I didn't have one exactly like the original, so this is some, what size is it? I think it's 2/0. No, it's 1/0 welding cable. Got an end, flag end for the battery, some heat shrink, and all of this is crimpable. So let's work on this. So our length goes from there around to pretty much right there. Should really invest in some cable cutters. In my experience, just buying the welding cable and making your own is a better deal. I have this crimper, which is actually like you're supposed to put it down and smash it with a hammer, but I've got way better control over it when I just put it in a vise like this. And I usually do 2 crimps on them. You could solder these, but crimping them, you generally are not going to have them come apart. You could crimp and solder them, but that seems kind of pointless to me. Good strong connection. Let's put some heat shrink tube on it. There you go. Nice new cable. That'll last a long time. Look at that, made in USA. So this should be a direct replacement for the factory harness. And it is nice, they give you a code and number the wires and tell you exactly where they go. We'll start with the simplest first. We just got this little coil to distributor wire. A little crusty. There you go, first wire done. Got a few to go, but I like this style harness because it's original cotton coated vinyl wire. You can get modern, but with what we're doing with this project, I thought the old cotton coated style looked the best. All right, I got all the wiring done on this thing. New wires to the coil. Got new wires all the way to the bulbs. Even threw a couple fresh corks in here. New battery cables on it, positive and negative. Our light switch is working. And our ignition switch is working. Got a new ignition switch in there. The old one was finicky. It's a nice harness. The only kind of gripe I've got with it, and now that I'm working on this, I remember I had it with the last one, is that it's a little longer than the factory one, and you're kind of trying to figure out where to loop the wires up and around to make them work. But even got new wire all the way up in the bullet tail light. These are a pain to fish through, but we got it running down through the fender like it's supposed to, down and under. The only thing I don't have hooked up is I've got the auxiliary lights. This did have a light on the back, although I don't like the one they were using, and it originally had an auxiliary plug as well, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do there, but I've got the wire run to it to plug into. But looks great. Getting this much closer. Now let's just hope it charges. Gonna change out some of the ignition parts. Even though this is original, I think after this many years, it's probably worth putting a new cap on it. Contacts are wore down pretty good. The carbon in the middle is actually completely worn off. The rotor's been running on the copper part. So yeah, swap that out. The rotor, as eaten away as that edge is, good chance this was the original rotor in it as well. Would not surprise me. I wish these things had an hour meter on them, but they don't. The points actually don't look too bad. I mean, I've got this thing that if you got a set of points and they're working okay, just leave them alone, because chances are whatever you replace them with is going to be worse than what you took out. So let me roll it over. We'll check the gap. It's honestly about perfect, so I'm not even going to mess with that. I will put a little bit of oil on the felt. Put our dust cover back on. Have a replacement rotor button. When you're doing this, always it's good to check, make sure your advance feels like it's working correctly. And got a new distributor cap. New spark plug wires. These are from the Brillman company as well. Went with the original cotton coated style to keep the look. Like we got 1, B2, and then 4, 3. 1. Get our funnel with our ultra fine super micron t-shirt filter. Fill this thing back up. Get our air cleaner put back on here. Fuel tank set back on here. Alright, I've been messing with this thing long enough. Let's hear it run again. Ignition on, neutral, a little throttle choke. Something's hitting something. Let's check that out. Looks like it's our hose clamp down in there. Have to turn that a little bit. Alright, take two. Hopefully less metallic noises. It did fire right up though. Sounds pretty good. That exhaust leak is gone now. We're charging, so that's perfect. Our lights are on. Hydraulics are working. I've got just a little bit of gas in this thing, so can't run it too long. Valves are nice and quiet. All right, while this thing's running, I'm gonna spin these rear tires in. That looks a little better, narrowed back up. That thing's running good. Well, there you are. It's all put back together and it looks darn nice. I can't believe it cleaned up this good. But we're not done yet. So I want to take this tractor to some plow days and stuff, and to me that means it needs a full set of weights. So we've got 2 weights on the back right now, and I actually have a pallet over here with some more weights. I've got 2 more sets here that are rust matched, and just got some fresh bolts in to mount them up. So those weights have the most amount of original paint on them, so I'm going to pull those weights off, and then I'm going to stack these weights underneath, and when I'm all done I'll spray them with that linseed oil and it'll match the frame here. So that's going to be a bit of a lengthy process, so maybe I'll just do a time lapse here. No door jamb or fence post is safe now. I think the weights really toughen these up, make them look nice. I've got the weights all mounted up, 3 per side. So I'm going to take some linseed oil and spray these weights. And I've also got these here. These are front donut weights. Go on the front wheels, hopefully make those painted up rims stand out less. These didn't really match, they were pretty rusty, but kind of fogged some orange on it and wiped it around. I think they'll look all right. I'm gonna put these front wheel weights on, but while we're at it, I'm gonna check the front wheel bearings and clean them and repack them. They feel pretty good, but we're already here, and I gotta take the wheel off and stuff to put the weights on, so let's just pull them apart and flush them and repack them. Looking, this actually has some play on the main shaft. So I'm going to loosen this lock nut up and tighten that down. Good catch while we're in there. Yeah, these are due. That grease is all separating. At least they are greasy and they're not all dried out. That is a pro. Even the inner bearing is still doing pretty good. So I'm gonna clean these up and then we'll re-grease and put them back together. Bearing races don't look too bad. They're pretty smooth. Wouldn't put them in a race car, but for what we're doing, they'll be just fine. Bearings are looking pretty good as well. So we'll repack these here. If I remember right, I might have that in there upside down. Yeah, that works better. Put it the right way. And the inner bearing. Alright, we're going to assemble our inner part of the bearing because it gets the dust seals and stuff put in it. I was just looking up in the manual here, seeing that I had things in the right order, and thought it was worth noting that this is the original manual for this tractor. There's the original delivery record, and the engine number's correct and the serial number's correct, and it was looked like Floyd maybe Welch of Arlington, Ohio bought it brand new. Pretty neat. I've had that before, but you don't find it very often to get the original manual with the tractor. Put our hub back on. Get our inner bearing back in there. Or get our outer bearing back in there. You can put these on with the wheels on the tractor, but it sure is easier laying on the ground like this. These bolts were just a little bit too long, so I ended up taking about 600 thousandths off of them. They don't make the original factory style bolts for these anymore, so you get what you can find. I really think that helps even out the look from front to back. Those kind of rusty front weights really kind of pulls it all together. Those freshly painted front wheels kind of stood out. Well, what do y'all think? Leave a comment down below. Do you like it? Are you a fan of the rustoration look, or should I have taken all that time and just painted it up like a brand new one? Personally, I like this. It adds a lot of character to it, and it's kind of a one of a kind, you know. Everybody's got a painted up one, but one that's got original paint on it is definitely not as common. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed this video. It was a lot of work to get this thing looking this nice and sounding this good. I've probably got, I couldn't even guess, but I mean every bit of 40 hours of actual labor in this tractor and videoing, plus another, shoot, 10 hours probably editing this video. It's a long one, but I am super thrilled with the outcome. I think this tractor looks awesome. There's still a few tweaks left to do on it. I want to get that battery box all finished up, and I also have the front grill screen to put on this thing. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of it. It's like a corn picker screen to keep the cotton and stuff out, but we'll see. I'm not sure if I'm going to put that on or not. We'll see how it looks, but I'm sure there's minor tweaks, and I'll have to adjust the hydraulics and the traction booster linkages and stuff, but that all can come with time. But for now, I'm calling this the end of this video. It's been enough work. Need a break from this thing, and hopefully the next time you see it, it'll be at that plow day in Perrysburg, Ohio, the 5 Points steam show. But check out the link in the description to that if you are interested in it and you're local to the area. It's a great time, and it's usually either hot or rainy that day. There is a rain date, but hopefully this year's a good one. So I've got a plow back there to put behind it. Kind of got original paint on that as well. I appreciate you all watching. If you're not already and you like this stuff, subscribe to the channel. Leave a like, leave a comment. It all helps. It really does. But I appreciate you all watching, and hopefully I see you on the next one.